Hello and welcome to Different Perspectives. I'm Paul Ndiho. Today we look at the legacy of Muhammadu Buhari, Nigeria's former president and one of the most consequential figures in the country's political history. Nigeria is mourning following the death of former President Muhammadu Buhari, who passed away at age 82 in a London clinic. Buhari, a former military leader turned Democrat, was a towering figure in Nigerian politics, from leading a military coup in 1980s to making history in 2015 by defeating an incumbent at the ballot box. Buhari's impact on the country is undeniable, though his legacy remains deeply polarizing. As tributes pour in from around the world and the nation prepares to lay him to rest in his hometown of Daura, questions arise about how he'll be remembered and what his passing means for Nigeria's fragile democracy and future political discourse. Joining me to unpack all this is Sir Leonard Anyogo, a seasoned constitutional lawyer and political analyst based in Abuja, Nigeria. Nigeria is mourning the passing of later President Muhammadu Buhari. Sir Leonard Anyogo, you are in Abuja, Nigeria. Set the stage for us. What's happening in the country as we speak?
Well, officially, Nigeria is mourning the death of the former president, Buhari. We are, as I speak to you, he's been buried in his home state, Katsina. That is some kilometers off the Nigerian capital.
What kind of legacy does President Muhammadu Buhari leave behind?
And we are having a kind of introspection on the leadership style of the former, the late. So it depends on how you look at it. Some think he did well, some think he didn't do well. But like all human beings, sometimes we have the human frailties. But the truth be told, that leadership in Nigeria is a huge challenge, because he was one of the second highest leader in Nigeria, because in 1983 he toppled an elected president democracy in 1983, where he was first as the Nigerian military head of state. And then in 2015, he was elected president, democratically elected president, after three failed attempts. So the expectation was that he was he was very passionate in serving Nigeria. Could be seen from the two sides of the coin. Maybe he succeeded partially because I think he built the second Niger bridge, and he was believed to be an honest president. But you cannot say his management team was honest, because his management team had a lot of corruption cases pending against them as I speak to you. So analysts will believe that he wasn't a good manager, but some will believe that he did his best. And so, as an African, as a Nigerian, actually, when you are dead, people don't speak ill of you. So it's always very difficult to speak up actually what's happening. Maybe after some time, when he's been buried, people will actually want to speak up very hopefully about the presidency of the late Nigerian leader. He is just a human being. He did his best as a leader. But the problem and the challenge and the big question is where he died. He died in London, the capital of England, in a London hospital, in a London clinic. So we expect that somebody of his stature should have been able to build a very standard clinic or hospital in Nigeria, because we have one of the best brains, medical brains in the world. So what does it take to have a functional medical facility in Nigeria? Look, if you recall, a lot of Nigerian leaders in the past had died. They always die outside the country, and they always brought back to be buried in Nigeria. So that is one sour test in the Nigerian leadership.
Your point, you make some very interesting points. First, you talked about how in the early 80s he took over government, but later on in 2015 he became a Democrat of sorts. and he was able to beat the incumbent president then, a good friend of mine, good luck Jonathan. Uh, and you also talked about how, for example, he never really took care of the country, despite all the natural resources that Nigeria has. The fact that he died in a London clinic, that speaks volumes, especially when it comes to his legacy. Uh, for people, there are people who think that despite all that, he meant well for Nigeria. He was not corrupt at heart. He was not a corrupt leader. But yes, some people who served under him were corrupt. How would you respond to that?
Well, one of the major reasons why he was able to be elected in 2015 after three failed attempts was he was seen as someone who is able to fight corruption. He was seen as an anti-corruption hero. I think that was one of the main reasons why he got it on the fourth attempt in 2015. But the some members of his cabinet, including his central bank governor, let me use the word of the former British Prime Minister, they were fantastically corrupt. So the criticism against the late president is that he wasn't firm. He didn't deal with this corruption amongst his cabinet. But it is generally believed that he was a very honest person, very humorous, somebody that had fought the Nigerian Civil War. And so, but his cabinet, you cannot say that was the case. Like I said, this moment is a moment of paying tribute to him and allowing him to be buried peacefully. But in later times, maybe there will be a lot of insight into his administration. So, because a manager is as good as the management team, so only you cannot change the system. And that brings me to a fall that Nigeria as a country lacks that leadership depth because we have very weak institutions. So an individual cannot function very effectively with those kind of weak institutions we have as a country. And that is why we are taking it upon ourselves, like the good good people in Nigeria or people that think about leadership, think about good leadership, have come together and say, look, our problem is leadership. How do we solve Nigerian leadership? Whether from different political parties, whether you are in the ruling party or the opposition party, we have agreed that the Nigerian problem is leadership. And that is the key area that everybody is looking at. That is why in my organization, I'm the DG of Good Governance Advocacy International. We have taken it upon ourselves to preach governance, that after politics must come governance. Governance is doing those basic items, taking policies from the people. So, but we don't have those luxury in Nigeria. We don't have natural disaster. We are very rich in human resources, but we are not rich in leadership. That is a fact. So it's not just a problem of the late President Buhari. It's even if even date back before him and even after him. So leadership has always been the problem. That is why we are paying that Nigerian leaders will be dying outside the country. With the best medical brains we have in the world, most of them are all Nigerians. What does it take to build a standard hospital or a clinic in Nigeria? Because majority of Nigerians cannot afford medical trip or tourism outside the country. So we want to believe that this is the last time a Nigerian leader will die outside the country. Because we expect that Nigerians, when they are sick, should be able to be treated in Nigeria after 6 decades of independence.
I wanted you to use the initiative that you just set up, good governance, right? And you talked about one of the pillars of good governance is good leadership. What will it take for Nigeria to have great leaders? You've had a lot of people speak highly about Buhari. They speak very highly of him, despite his shortcomings, right? But what does it take to build that culture where you have great leaders who come and serve the country very well?
We need a very strong institutions, not strong personality. Strong institutions that are independent of being manipulated. A strong judiciary that is based on rule of law. These are very critical Because if you don't have a strong institution, any person that is a president can easily manipulate these institutions. So I think that is what is lacking presently in Nigeria. We have very weak institutions. So the president or the governor, as the case may be, can actually manipulate this institution. And then the basic items of governance in Nigeria is to provide those basic infrastructure rather than palliative. But unfortunately, over time, Nigerian government have been talking about they provide palliative. That is looking at the not tackling the cause of the Nigerian issues, but the effects. Nigeria need to provide basic infrastructure like electricity, good roads, pipe-borne water, and then businesses will thrive. Not going to give them rice and beans with the greatest respect. These things are not sustainable. So if we have a strong institutions, a functional institutions in Nigeria, a very then Nigeria will be on the good trajectory. Not a strong personality, but strong institutions. These are the things we are preaching in my initiative, Good Governance Advocacy International.
Earlier, you talked about how President Buhari died in a London clinic. I wanted to go back to that point that you made. You say that why should it take every Nigerian leader who has passed on to this day being taken outside of the country because they don't have good hospitals, because they don't have good clinics. With all the natural resources that Nigeria has, why can't some of these leaders that we're talking about just do that?
Like I said, Nigerian personnel, medical personnel are the best in the whole world, among the best in the whole world. So we have the natural resources. What does it take to have a standard hospital in Nigeria where our leaders could be treated here? Because 99% of Nigerians are here. We don't have the opportunity of being treated outside the country. So we expected, because he was seen as a man of high integrity and honesty. So the Nigerians expected a lot for him, and that's why they voted for him in 2015. But that shows the natural or the problem of leadership in Nigeria, that even a cent in quotes may not be able to solve, except those basic ingredients of good workable institutions are established or are encouraged to function. Because you cannot understand why we cannot have a good hospital in Nigeria. I am in Abuja, the modern capital city of Nigeria, as I speak to you. So every now and then, our leaders, including the sub regional governors, are always going outside to be treated. And that's why analysts and critics will say that, okay, Nigeria is just like a place you can bury someone, like a cemetery. So you go and die outside and you come and be buried here. So I believe and I think that era should be gone. We should have standard hospital where, in fact, it's very dignifying that our leaders are treated here. And if they want to die, they will still die here. If you go outside, if you want to die, you still die. There's nothing so spectacular being treated outside when the medical technology can be brought in here. And it gives us a lot of dignity as Nigerians and even as Africans. In the in the early 60s, Nigeria was a medical hub because people from Middle East were coming here to be treated by Nigerians. You remember there was a time that Nigerian naira was even higher than the US dollar and the British pounds. So it looks as if from the good early days, Nigerians are even retrogressing because we had very functional system then. We had very viral economy, very strong economy. Nigeria were attracting everybody. The whole world was being attracted to Nigeria in the early 60s and even early 70s. So instead of going forward, we are going out to be treated. And then our leaders are dying outside. This is not the first Nigerian leader that died outside. Even the former Nigerian leader, Musa Yar'Adua, died outside the country. I was brought in to be buried in Nigeria. Incidentally, the same Katsina State where our late President Muhammadu Buhari is being buried as I speak to you.
Interesting insight there. You talked about professionals. My personal doctor is a Nigerian. My kid's pediatrician is a Nigerian. The lawyers that I run into whenever they're Nigerians. You have all these professionals. There is no place in America here where I am where you go and you don't find Nigerians at the top. We call them ogas at the top, oga pata pata. They are everywhere, right? They are everywhere. Seriously, why can't these professionals maybe figure out how to make Nigeria better? Why should it take for every leader in Nigeria to go seek medical attention outside of the country when they have what it takes? They have the professionals, they have the resources. And Nigeria is the biggest economy on the continent. You even have one of the richest people in Africa from Nigeria, Aliko Dagonte. So why is it so hard to just build simple things like that?
I think we not be fortunate to have that political will to bring to bear all these God-given natural resources and human resources we have. Because if I'm the president of this country, all what I need is to harness those natural resources, bring all the high tech, the whole world, and bring it and put in Nigeria here. So I do not know what is interesting in going outside the country to be treated when you have all the facilities, all the brains. Because the most important thing in medical science is the human component, which are the medical personnel, and we have them. So technology can be brought in and can be developed here, right here. So I think the issue is the lack of political will. For whatever reasons, I don't know why the Nigerian state has not been able to establish a world-class hospital in Nigeria, or the leadership example by our leaders to be treated in the country. Because that will equally be good for businesses. Because when you say you are attracting foreign investors, they want to know that you have a good medical facilities where if they fall ill, they can be treated, not rushing back to their countries. So I think this is an eye opener, and I want to sincerely believe that Muhammadu Buhari will be the last Nigerian president that will be treated aside. It is a challenge. It is a national emergency that will see this moment as a moment to restock, to do things differently in the country, especially in medical science, medical field.
Are there things that President Muhammadu Buhari can be remembered for? The good things that he did besides his shortcomings?
Yes, he was the one that built the second Niger bridge that connects the southwest to the southeast. It's a major bridge in Nigeria. He did very well in the areas of infrastructure. Like I said, you cannot point to say that he was corrupt as a person, but some of his cabinet members were not. So he still stands out as one of the Nigerian presidents with least corruption index. So he did well in the terms of infrastructure. So, and he was a very simple person. He was not so glamorous. And then those people that were privileged to meet with him, they would say he was a very humorous person. You know, so I think the area of infrastructure, the railway system, he did well. He did well. We can give that to him. He did well.
Through your initiative for good governance, do you think that you can have some kind of impact when it comes to fighting some of those vices that you talked about?
We have been doing a lot of advocacy on national television, international media like you. We have been engaging with legislators, National Assembly members, the parliament to bring out good laws. And we have been sensitizing a lot of Nigerians to participate actively in governance. Governance is not just after election. We have been preaching that after politics comes governance. Good governance. Governance that resonates with the people. That the policies of government should be drawn from the people. And we have been encouraging good people to join politics. Because we have discovered that a lot of people in politics are people that may not be good policy makers. The intelligent Nigerians are all running away outside the country, what we call the Japa syndrome, Japa in quote, running outside the country. And that's why you see some of our best brains are outside the country. Through our organization, we're saying, look, come back, let us build a continent. Let us it is believed that and once I use this opportunity to call on the international community to help Nigeria sort out its leadership problem, to help Nigeria promote good governance, to work with our organization where we can promote good governance. Because if we have good governance, this migration through the desert will not be in Europe. Because the Europeans should understand that if there's good governance in Nigeria and Africa, people will not be running to Europe. You have those basic items in Nigeria. So it is a global collaboration that we must promote good governance. And that's why my organization is here to work with the whole global community. We meet with high commissions, ambassadors of different countries, and other international organizations for the promotion of good governance, because that is the key. We'll be able to identify the problem of Nigeria and Africa, that good governance, will solve us a whole lot of problems.
There are some people who have argued that the problem of Africa is not the lack of resources, the lack of human capital, uh, but we have a leadership crisis. Whether it's in Nigeria, whether it's in Uganda, you see young people on the streets in Kenya protesting every day. How can we as a people maybe fight this and solve this problem?
You see, another problem is a sit tight syndrome of Nigeria, of African leaders. Uh, Dear Paul, look at the Cameroonian president, 92 years. He still wants to go for another 10. So that connection of the people is not there. African leaders see themselves as overlords, as I know it all. So they don't connect with the people. So there's a total disconnect between the government and the government. So once you are a governor or you're a president in Nigeria or any part of the world or any part of Africa, you tend to see yourself as a demigod. So you are completely disconnected with the people. Because the governance to me, is very simple. It's very arithmetic. We are supposed to connect with the people and know what the people want. What are those basic infrastructure that they need? Just make those provisions. And the sacrifices of a leader, like I said, for instance, you are going to their market, you are going to their hospital, your children are going to the same school. Not that when you are privileged, your children are all school outside the country, you go for treatment, you go for shopping outside the country. You are not encouraging leadership. You are not encouraging that followership. So that kind of disconnect between the government and the governed is what we are preaching as an organization to be bridged. Because good governance will encourage progress, sustainable progress in the African country, and Nigeria as a case study.
Any final thoughts?
After politics comes good governance. The destination of politics should be good governance. Leadership is about the people. Holding consistent engagement with the people, a kind of a town hall approach, going back to the street to feed their pulse, and then eat with them, go to the same hospital with them, drive on the same road. You connect very seamlessly with the people, and people will not want to leave the country or leave the continent to Europe or the United States of America. And I want to use this opportunity once again to call on the international community and international organizations to collaborate with the Good Governance Advocacy International for better governance, for the promotion of good governance in the continent and Nigeria in particular.
If I heard you correctly, you seem to suggest that we need some kind of servant leadership, where some of these leaders who become our presidents need to figure out a way of connecting with the people that they serve. Instead of being oblivious at what's going on around them, we need some kind of servant leaders who are engaging the community, who are involved in everyday community to see how they can progress their country.
Absolutely. We need that leader that like a servant to the people. Because a leader goes the way and people follow. You have to empathize with the people, sympathize with the people, and become like the people. They will naturally follow, because leadership is all about the people. The people is first. People first. That is the mantra. For instance, in the sub-region of Katsina State, it's the people first. You put the people first before you. Because if you don't do so, you'll be completely disconnected. Like I said, how are you as a leader? You are when you are sick, you go outside the country to be treated. What happens to the follower? You want to do shopping, you are not patronizing the goods produced in your country. You have vehicles that are produced in your country, but you are driving the foreign vehicles. Because if you are not majorly, you should patronize the items produced in your country.
I guess we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Sir Leonard Anyogo is a seasoned constitutional lawyer and political analyst based in Abuja, Nigeria. We want to know what you think about Muhammadu Buhari, Nigeria's former president, and what kind of legacy he leaves behind. Of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow Paul Ndiho on Substack, X, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and